Everybody like and subscribe, praise the bell icon. Story number 1.
In the winter of 2007, deep in rural Missouri, a sheriff's deputy named Eric Malley responded to a 911 call that still haunts the county dispatch logs to this day. It came in at 2:13 a.m., a shaky voice of a young boy whispering, "He's hurting her again." The dispatcher tried to get more details, but the line went dead. The address it pinged from didn't make sense. It was an abandoned farmhouse that had been boarded up for over a decade after the family who lived there disappeared. The town had rumors about that place. Kids called it the Screamer House because teenagers who dared each other to enter claimed to hear someone screaming from the basement at night. Eric wasn't the type to believe in ghost stories. He drove out alone, brushing off warnings from dispatch to wait for backup. Snow crunched under his boots as he approached the house. The boards on the front door had been pulled off recently, and the doorknob was slick with something dark. He told himself it was just oil or old paint, but it looked too fresh. Inside, the temperature dropped drastically. His breath hung in the air. The walls were covered in peeling wallpaper, and there was a heavy, sour stench, like rotting meat and mildew. The beam from his flashlight flickered as he called out, "County Sheriff's Office! Anyone inside?" No response, just silence. Then a thump upstairs. He moved toward the staircase slowly. Each step groaned under his weight. At the top, the hallway stretched into blackness. Another thump, followed by a soft, dragging sound. He reached a bedroom door, half open. His flashlight caught a glimpse of something inside, someone standing in the corner, facing the wall. "Hey, turn around, let me see your hands." The figure didn't move. He stepped in, and the floorboards under his feet screamed like they were in pain. He got within a few feet and shone his light directly at the figure. It was a young boy, maybe 10 years old, pale as paper, wearing only underwear. His arms hung limp at his sides, and his head twitched every few seconds like something was short-circuiting. Eric reached out to touch the boy's shoulder, and suddenly the kid turned. His eyes were completely white, no irises, just milky orbs staring through him. Then he opened his mouth and screamed, a scream that didn't sound like it came from lungs, but from some deep, hollow place. It was high-pitched, deafening, and echoed through the entire house. Eric stumbled backward, and when he turned to run, something else was in the hallway, a tall, gaunt man. No clothes, skin pulled tight over bones. His head tilted slowly, and he began walking toward Eric, dragging something long and heavy behind him, a leather belt. Eric fired 3 shots. The man didn't even flinch. Instead, he dropped the belt, lunged forward, and everything went black. He woke up outside, alone, lying in the snow, his cruiser still running. His service weapon was missing, and so was his body cam. When he got back to the station, shaken and frostbitten, they told him there had been no 911 call, nothing on the logs, no record of dispatch ever sending him there. And it didn't end there. For months after, every time he closed his eyes, he saw that boy. In dreams, in reflections. Once, he swore the boy stood outside his house in the middle of a lightning storm, eyes glowing white through the rain. His wife left him. He quit the force, moved away. But before he left, he warned the new deputies, "If you ever get a call from that house, let it ring." 3 years later, a rookie named Julie Harker responded to a prank call from the same address. She never made it to the front door. Her dash cam footage showed her walking up the path, turning toward the house, then freezing. The tape ends with her whispering, "I see him too." She hasn't been seen since.
Story number 2.
In 1996, in rural Pennsylvania, Deputy Alan Krantz was called to investigate a series of noise complaints coming from an isolated home at the edge of Dunwell County Forest. The complaints all said the same thing: screaming. Not yelling, screaming, like someone was being tortured. But every time a deputy went out there, the place was empty. The house had a dark history. It had belonged to a man named Thomas Grayson, a former history teacher who vanished in 1981 after neighbors reported strange rituals and fires in the woods behind his property. Police had searched the place back then and found journals full of bizarre entries, mentions of time cracks, the forest mirror, and the others that listen, but no evidence of a crime. On this particular night, Alan drove out alone. He had grown up hearing the stories and didn't believe a word of them. He thought maybe some teenagers were playing pranks or squatting in the abandoned house. When he arrived, the sky was dark and heavy, like it was going to storm. The house looked worse than the photos. Roof half collapsed, vines swallowing the walls, windows like dead eyes. As he stepped inside, his radio crackled with static, then went completely silent, no connection. He clicked on his flashlight and began to sweep through the house. Dust and rot clung to everything. Wallpaper peeled like skin, but the place was silent. Then he heard it, muffled screaming, faint, but definitely there. It was coming from below. He found the basement door partially open. The stairwell down was pitch black. As he descended, the screaming grew louder, desperate, guttural, as if someone was being tortured right beneath the floorboards of the earth. But when he reached the bottom, the sound stopped, just gone. The basement was massive and dirt-walled, with strange symbols carved into every surface. In the center, a large rusted mirror stood upright, not leaning, not mounted, just standing perfectly balanced on its own. Alan approached it, heart thudding in his chest. The glass was warped, like it had water trapped behind it. But what chilled him was his reflection. It wasn't right. His reflection didn't mimic him exactly. When he raised his hand, it twitched. When he turned his head, it tilted in the opposite direction as if it was studying him. Then the reflection smiled. Alan did not. He backed away, but his reflection stayed frozen, grinning. Eyes black pits, mouth stretching impossibly wide. Then it moved forward, into the glass, and something knocked back from the other side. 3 loud bangs that shook the mirror in place. Alan fled. He didn't stop running until he was back in his cruiser. His radio returned as soon as he hit the edge of the property. He filed a brief report, left out the mirror, left out the smile. But he never went back. A year later, 2 teenage ghost hunters went missing near the Grayson house. Their camera was found just inside the front door. The final minute of footage showed them in the basement, panning over the mirror. As the flashlight hits the glass, one of them whispers, "Is it copying us?" And just before the video cuts out, a voice, not theirs, says softly, "I like your shape." Neither kid was ever found. The house has since been fenced off, condemned. But some nights, when the wind cuts through the trees just right, people say you can hear screams from under the ground. And if you're brave or stupid enough to look through the cracks in the boarded windows, you might see yourself inside, staring back, smiling.
Story number 3.
In 2004, in a remote part of northern Montana, a retired Border Patrol officer named Harold Finch bought a small piece of land with a rundown cabin on it, intending to spend his retirement in peace. Within weeks of moving in, he started filing reports with the local sheriff's office. Strange lights in the woods, tapping on his windows at night, footsteps on his roof. Most deputies chalked it up to wildlife or old age paranoia. But the calls kept coming, and something about Harold's voice on the radio disturbed even the most seasoned officers. He didn't sound afraid. He sounded resigned, like he knew something was coming and no one could stop it. Finally, Deputy Claire Roth was sent out to check on him after dispatch received a 3 a.m. call where Harold only said, "They're in the walls now," and then hung up. She drove through icy back roads and reached the cabin just before sunrise. The place was silent, no lights. The front door was slightly open. Inside, the wood stove had gone cold, and snow drifted through broken windows. The place had been ransacked, but not in any kind of human way. The furniture was shredded, walls clawed. Symbols had been carved into the floors with what looked like fingernails. But there was no sign of Harold. In the middle of the living room was a tape recorder, still running, the reel turning slowly. She pressed rewind and hit play. At first, it was just ambient noise, wind, creaking, and the occasional scuffle. Then faintly a voice, "They live under the ground. They wear our skin. They practice in the mirror until they get it right." Another few seconds of silence, then scraping, and then Harold again. "I saw my own face outside the window last night. It smiled, but I wasn't smiling." Claire turned off the tape. Something about the cabin felt wrong, heavy, like it was watching her. As she left, she noticed deep impressions in the snow behind the house. Footprints, but not quite human. Too long, too narrow, like bare feet with extra joints. When she got back to the station, she had the tape analyzed. The sound tech found something buried in the background. A whisper looped underneath the static, repeating a phrase no one had noticed before. It said, "She'll hear this next. She'll come alone." No one believed her, of course. The cabin was burned down weeks later in an unexplained fire. Harold was never found. But Claire quit the force not long after, moved out of state, wouldn't talk about what happened until she was interviewed anonymously on a podcast years later. Her voice trembling, she said, "Sometimes I see myself watching me through windows, not a reflection. It's like it's learning how to be me." And in the last episode of that podcast, the host plays a voicemail Claire left the night she disappeared. "It's in the house. It doesn't blink. It looks like me. It knows I'm the only one who knows it's not real. Please don't trust the people who look like they're supposed to be there." She's never been seen again. But the whisper on the voicemail, when slowed down and isolated, says, "Now it's your turn."